What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. Sam Shapiro back here with more of your Heat latest on FanArc. Don't forget to like this video and, of course, drop a sub on our channel. We're almost at 200 subscribers, so I'd really appreciate the follow here. Haywood Highsmith, an update on his knee surgery that he underwent this Friday. It's looking like he hopefully is going to be ready to suit up for the beginning of the regular season, as now he's going to be recovering from that surgery for the next 8 to 10 weeks. So probably going to miss definitely going to miss all of preseason. Going to miss all of training camp, but hopefully we'll be ready to suit up and go by, I would say, early to mid-September or November. And I just think that, I'm glad everything went well. The procedure was only apparently 35 minutes, but unfortunately he suffered a meniscal tear in his right knee. So obviously a very tough injury to overcome really. And I'm just hoping and praying for a speedy recovery for him. Hoping that he'll be ready to go for the beginning of the regular season and hopefully won't be missing too many games now that he got this procedure done. Apparently a team physician or somebody with the team did the procedure in about 35 minutes, and he suffered the injury while he was in his hometown in Baltimore working out. So again, just hoping the best for him, hoping that he continues to recover on the trajectory he's moving right now. And again, just hoping for a speedy recovery and that he's ready to go for Miami. A proven 3-and-D guy deep in the rotation. And now hopefully with a guy like Robinson, now Duncan Robinson moving on, that will kind of free more threes for him to take, at least for Miami in certain situations where it's going to hopefully put us in a good position to win some games. So again, hoping for a speedy recovery for him, and nice to see that his procedure went well on Friday regarding his meniscal tear in his right knee. Now moving over to Tyler Herro, a topic I wanted to touch on regarding him. It looks like he's going to touch a very interesting points records in our Miami Heat point record, at least this upcoming season. And it looks like he's going to pass the career points LeBron James had while playing in the 305. LeBron playing and scoring 7,919 points while playing with D. Wade and Chris Bosh and on the iconic Big Three Dynasty team. And Herro just under 7,000 points right now, sitting at 6,987 points. And I think if he can at least play 70 games this year and average around 24 points per game like he did last season, that he could definitely surpass that record by the end of this regular season. If he doesn't get it this year, he's almost definitely going to get it next year, assuming that he can stay healthy and continue to play at the clip he's playing at right now. Again, hoping that if he does break the record, or LeBron's record, that it would be very an exciting kind of milestone for him to pass. Would definitely make him an interesting player on Miami's depth chart right now. And I just think that it'll get him one step closer to getting to D. Wade's record. I'm not sure if he'll ever break Dwyane Wade's record, because Dwyane Wade's got over 21,000 points with Miami, 21,556 to be exact. So drop in the comments if you think Herro is going to break LeBron's points record in Miami this season, and that if he'll ever come close to touching Dwyane Wade's career points playing in Miami as well. I think obviously LeBron, he's probably going to break that record this season, assuming he can stay healthy. But Dwyane Wade, I don't know, because I'm not totally sold Miami, or he's going to spend it. Tyler Herro is going to spend his entire career in Miami. But if he does, it'll definitely be close, and I definitely am putting him at a top 5 spot all time on Miami's points record if he decides to be a Heat lifer. So drop in the comments, again, if you think when he will break LeBron's record, because now it's kind of only a matter of time, or if he will ever break Dwyane Wade's record. Now moving over to another guard that most Heat fans were hoping were going to make a difference for, or was going to make a difference for Miami, at least in his time being here so far. Terry Rozier obviously has been in so many trade conversations for Miami over the last couple of weeks. And one conversation that I haven't seen that's been at the forefront of anything is there any hope that he could potentially bounce back this year? Could he return to being a 20-point per game scorer like we saw in Charlotte, averaging literally 20 points per game in 5 seasons that he played with Charlotte, and then also being a very focal sixth man on a Boston Celtics team before going to Charlotte? And, granted, this Miami team is a little bit, I feel, deeper than the team. Well, Boston is always very deep. So, but he also wasn't playing that great. He wasn't the same player in Charlotte that he was on Boston either. And he didn't have as much flexibility to move around. But I definitely think with how the roster's been shaken up over this season, it's kind of surprising that Rozier hasn't been able to kind of return to playing at that level. And I think that's why a lot of Heat fans have kind of given up on him overall, really, and are like, okay, at this point, we should just try to see if we can get any value out of him and shave $25 million, the $25 million we still owe him out of, what we're responsible for. So, and I understand that too, bringing in guys like Yaku Chones, trying to develop Pela Larson, it's just now with Duncan Robinson out of the mix and Norman Powell in the mix, it's interesting to see how the dynamic of this team is going to shape going forward. And I think that it could potentially give Rozier a little bit more of a better scenario for him to hopefully return back into the player he once was. I don't know if he'll ever bounce back, at least while he's in Miami right now, but I'm hopeful that there is still a chance he could at least become more of a 15-point per game scorer again when he at least this upcoming season. So drop in the comments if you think there is any hope that Terry Rozier could potentially return to the player he once was in Charlotte. I think there's a small inkling of a chance that it's possible, but right now things are kind of leaning towards he's not going to necessarily be that player just because of how Wiggins has kind of become more of a focal player, really on both sides of the ball for Miami. Tyler Herro obviously continuing to moving on an upward trajectory as an all-star, and then Miami really focusing on more of the development of guys like Kel'el Ware, Pela Larson, and Yaku Chones might kind of hinder Rozier's ability, and Miami's ultimately really what they're investing in him and what they're hoping he's going to bring to the team. A lot of people still saying that trade for him being one of the biggest mistakes made by Miami in recent years, just because of the draft rights they were trading, or at least the first round pick, the 2027 first round pick they traded for that in that Rozier deal. And the hope was it was going to bring in a more talented guard to try to hopefully mend the relationship between Jimmy Butler and Pat Riley. But unfortunately, Rozier not really living up to the standard that he was playing at in Charlotte, kind of wasn't able to fix a relationship that was already broken. And it's very unfortunate to see that. And I'm hopeful that given how the roster has kind of changed over this offseason, it could potentially free things up in the backcourt for Rozier to kind of find his game a little bit more like it was once in Charlotte. I mean, his scoring abilities, he can score from pretty much anywhere on the field. So I think that he's not limited to being a 3-and-D guy or, being a strict slasher, or he's got a pretty solid mid-range game. I would say that's one of my favorite parts of his game overall. And I think that he definitely could help, at least on the facilitating front in that regard. But I'm hopeful that this season he's going to maybe be a 13, 15 point per game scorer once again. But right now, again, I'm hopeful. I'm hoping that that's going to happen. I personally think it's not at this point, just because it didn't really work out. Unfortunately, we've seen Miami bring in talented guards that haven't really been able to play at the standard they once played at. Victor Oladipo being a prime example of that. But I'm not saying it's impossible, and I think it's a little sad to see the conversations surrounding him right now as, oh, he's expensive and he's not playing well and yada yada yada, when he definitely has some sort of potential that he could really turn it around. So drop in the comments if you think this year might be that year, if Miami should totally move on from him, which again, I wouldn't be upset about that either. If even just getting some draft capital in 2027 for him would be a good idea at this point. I think that also, if he can't become that player again, wouldn't be such a bad idea for Miami to look into. But now moving back over to a guard I briefly mentioned in the earlier segment, Dwyane Wade, making some interesting takes over the course of this week regarding his 7 best NBA players that he's seen throughout his career. He labeled these players as a collection of players he's found particularly impactful and inspiring to watch, and it's no surprise that 2 of the players that he lists kind of right off the bat, at least on his podcast show, were Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, him obviously modeling one of pretty much his entire game after the 2 players that shared that position with him. I would argue that, he's in that conversation of being one of the best. When you think best shooting guards of all time, I think you always think Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and in a lot of people's minds, Dwyane Wade. So it was cool to see him kind of give them a nod a little bit, mentioning them right off the bat ahead of everybody else. And I mean, he could have started with, I mean, he ultimately did list LeBron and Shaq as well, getting to play with them up close and personal and winning titles with them. But it's interesting that he didn't lead with them right off the bat. I mean, obviously he was moved and inspired by them because he won at such a high level with both of them. But even if he didn't, I mean, those are arguably two players on everybody's top 10 list. And they, quite honestly, they should be. Shaq being a dominant force in his own right obviously was insane on the Lakers, but then being able to leave the Lakers and then go to another team and then finding another shooting guard to bring home a championship with was had to be inspirational. And it, especially because the guy couldn't shoot a free throw to save his life. I just think that it was nice to see Shaq on that list as well. Allen Iverson also gracing that list along with Steph Curry, and then the last player being Kevin Garnett. I think Allen Iverson and Kevin Garnett, just two gritty players, absolutely grinding it out, just playing with tenacity, fearlessness, and just pure aggression, and absolutely just being able to dominate whatever competition was kind of thrown in their face. So, and then obviously Curry being an insane shooter, really developing into the greatest shooter of all time. If you asked me 10 years ago who the best shooter in the NBA was, he wouldn't even probably be in the conversation. Well, at this point, 10 years ago, yes. I'm thinking more like 2011, 2012. You're thinking Ray Allen, Reggie Miller. You're not thinking Steph Curry. But now at this point, you look at it's 2025 already. In 2015, Curry was starting to kind of inch into that conversation, and now it's not even a debate. I feel like if anybody would argue at this point Ray Allen or Reggie Miller is a better three-point shooter than him, they'd go, you're absolutely, or a shooter, they'd say you're absolutely crazy, which, I mean, is kind of true. I mean, Curry is I don't need to get into how unbelievable a shooter Stephen Curry is, but I'm not surprised that he was gracing the likes of D Wade's top 7 players that he's been inspired by over the course of his career. Curry really coming into his own towards the end of D Wade's career, so D Wade not necessarily being able to play against Curry, in the prime years of his career, but getting a little bit older, once he got older, once he got wiser, seeing how he kind of grew into that definitely had an influence on him. So that list being MJ, Kobe, LeBron, Allen Iverson, Shaq, KG, and like I just mentioned, Stephen Curry, I thought was a pretty good top 7 list overall. I've never heard of more of a top 5 or a top 10 list, but a top 7 list, pretty interesting. So, yeah, I thought those were some interesting takes that he made on those So interesting takes, having those players being 7 guys that really moved him and how he viewed the game. That's going to wrap up today's episode of Your Heat Latest on FanArc. Once again, don't forget to subscribe and, of course, drop a like on this video. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Sam Shapiro. Have a great day.